She slammed the paper against our door so hard it rattled the glass. "Pay the $3,500 fine or get out!" she screamed, pointing her finger right in my wife's face. My wife didn't even flinch, just folded the paper in half and said calmly, "This is fake. We're not paying anything." Karen's eyes went wide, like someone had just spit on her crown. "You think you can ignore me? I run this neighborhood." 5 minutes later, the sound of sirens cut through the street. Karen stood proudly at the curb, waving at the police car like she had just caught a criminal. "Right here, officer! Arrest them! They refuse to pay their HOA fine!" The cop stepped out, tall, serious, hand already on his belt. My wife walked down the driveway slowly, holding the fake notice out. "This is fake. There's no fine. There's no rule." Karen interrupted, shouting, "Don't listen to her lies! She's defiant. She disrespected my authority. Take her in." The officer took the paper, scanned it, and his expression changed instantly. His eyes darted from the paper to my wife, then back again. He froze in place, his mouth slightly open. Finally, he whispered, "Judge, you live here?" Karen's jaw dropped so fast I thought it might hit the ground. The officer straightened his posture so fast it was like he'd just been called to attention. My wife crossed her arms and said evenly, "Yes, officer. I serve at the county courthouse, and this woman has been harassing us with forged documents." Karen's face twisted. "Judge, don't fall for that. She's just pretending to sound important. Nobody like her could ever be a judge." The cop turned slowly toward Karen. "Ma'am, I've seen her on the bench. I've testified in her courtroom. You're standing here accusing a sitting judge of refusing to pay a fine that doesn't even exist." Karen's smirk faltered, but she doubled down. "I don't care who she thinks she is. In this neighborhood, I make the rules. The HOA board already decided." The officer frowned. "Funny thing, this HOA was dissolved last year. I remember because I live 10 blocks from here." Whispers started from the neighbors gathered on their porches. Phones came out, cameras were recording. Karen's voice cracked as she yelled, "She's dangerous! She threatened me!" My wife didn't even blink. "Good thing we have cameras," she said, pulling out her phone and tapping the screen. A live video popped up showing Karen sliding the fake fine under our door that morning and shouting through the window, "You'll regret it if you don't pay." The cop watched for a few seconds, then looked back at Karen. "You really want to stick with your story?" Karen's hands trembled, but before she could answer, another patrol car rolled up behind them. 2 more officers stepped out of the second car, and the first one waved them over. "We've got a situation," he said, handing them the fake notice. They read it, then looked straight at Karen. Karen tried to regain her confidence, raising her chin high. "Finally, more backup. Now arrest her. She owes thousands in unpaid fines, and she thinks being a so-called judge makes her above the law." One of the new officers chuckled. "Above the law? Lady, she is the law." The crowd of neighbors laughed under their breath, phones still rolling. Karen's face went bright red. "Stop recording! This is private business!" she screamed. My wife's voice cut through the noise, calm and sharp. "This is not private. You tried to scam me and my family out of thousands. You forged documents. You called the police on false charges. That's 3 crimes before breakfast." The taller officer nodded. "She's right. Impersonating an HOA, filing a false police report, and harassment." Karen's eyes darted from one cop to another, desperate. "You're all blind. She's tricking you. She's hiding something in that house." She rushed toward our porch like she was about to barge inside.
The nearest officer caught her by the arm, yanking her back. "Ma'am, step away from the property." The neighbors gasped. Karen twisted and shouted, "You'll all regret this! I have people who can make you listen!" And just as she said it, a black SUV rolled slowly down the street and stopped in front of my driveway. The windows were tinted, the engine still running.
The SUV doors swung open and two men stepped out in dark uniforms, badges glinting on their belts. But even from a distance, something was off. Their patches didn't match, their boots weren't standard issue, and the way they carried themselves screamed fake. Karen's entire face lit up. There, finally, real officers who actually listened to me. Arrest her and shut this whole house down. The first officer beside me muttered, "They're not from our department." He tapped his radio. "Dispatch confirmed. Did anyone else get called here?" The reply crackled back. "Negative. No additional units sent." Neighbors whispered nervously. Phones zoomed in on the two men as they walked towards us, hands resting on their holsters like they wanted to put on a show. Karen strutted forward, pointing at my wife. "She's lying! She's dangerous! These men know the law! They'll handle it!" My wife didn't move. Her eyes locked on the taller one, and then she said quietly, "Interesting. I've seen you before. You stood in my courtroom 2 months ago, impersonating an officer then, too." The man froze mid-step. Karen blinked, confused. "What? No, these are my friends. They work for the state." The real officers closed in, their hands now firmly on their weapons. "Sir, show us your IDs. Now." The fake cops hesitated. Neighbors' cameras were rolling. Tension filled the air. And then my wife leaned just slightly forward and said, "If you don't pull out real identification in the next 10 seconds, I'll sign the warrant myself." The taller fake officer's jaw tightened. His hand twitched near his belt, but he didn't reach for his wallet. The shorter one glanced around at the crowd, at all the phones recording, and muttered, "This is bad." The real cop stepped forward, voice sharp. "IDs, now, or we treat this as armed impersonation." Karen jumped between them, waving her arms. "No, they don't need to show you anything. I called them because you're all corrupt. They work for me." The crowd broke into laughter, but Karen didn't realize how insane she sounded. She actually puffed her chest and shouted, "I am the HOA, and my authority is higher than yours." That was it. The officer grabbed the taller fake cop's wrist, twisted it, and slammed him against the SUV. The other officers pulled the shorter one down to the pavement in seconds. Their fake badges clattered to the ground. Karen screamed, "Stop! You can't do this! They're with me!" The first officer turned to her, calm but cold. "And that makes it worse. You didn't just file a false report. You conspired with men pretending to be law enforcement. Do you have any idea how serious that is?" Karen's mouth opened and closed, like she was choking on her own words. She looked to the neighbors for support, but all she saw were cameras pointed at her. My wife finally spoke again, her voice steady as ever. "I told you, officer, this isn't about fines, this is about control. She thinks she owns this entire street." The officer nodded slowly, cuffing Karen's wrists behind her back. "Not anymore."